It was an ordinary Tuesday evening, and I had just returned from a long day at work. The humdrum routine of life had me yearning for little surprises, a spark to break the monotony. Yet, when my wife, Claire, dropped her unexpected bombshell, I realized I should have been careful what I wished for. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I walked in. I kissed her on the cheek, like always, and began to loosen my tie. That's when she turned to me, her eyes sparkling with an unsettling mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Honey," she said with an almost playful tone, "my boyfriend is waiting for you outside. You'll finally get to meet him." At first, I thought it was a joke, one of those strange attempts at humor she'd picked up during her book club meetings or TV binges. I chuckled awkwardly, waiting for her to laugh it off. She didn't. Instead, she wiped her hands on a dish towel and walked over to me, her expression unreadable. "Claire," I started, my voice uneasy, "what are you talking about?" Her gaze didn't waver. "I mean it, James. He's here. I think it's time you two met." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. A knot formed in my chest as my mind raced. Was this some elaborate prank? Had I misheard her? Or, worse, was she serious? "You're joking, right?" I managed to stammer. She shook her head, her calm demeanor only adding to my growing sense of dread. "No, I'm not. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just come outside." Against every instinct screaming at me to stay inside, I followed her to the front door. My heart pounded as she opened it, revealing a man standing at the edge of our driveway. He looked about my age, tall and well-dressed, with an easy confidence that only made me feel smaller in my own home. "James," Claire said softly, "this is Ethan." Ethan extended a hand, as though this were the most natural introduction in the world. I stared at him, unsure whether I wanted to shake his hand or punch him. "Nice to finally meet you," he said, his voice annoyingly pleasant. I couldn't form words. Everything felt surreal, like I had stepped into someone else's nightmare. I turned to Claire, hoping for an explanation that might make sense of the chaos spiraling around me. "Claire," I said through gritted teeth, "what is this? Why is he here?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filling with something that resembled guilt, but not enough to comfort me. "James, I've been seeing Ethan for a while now. I didn't know how to tell you, but it's time to be honest. I still care about you, but my feelings for him are real too." My knees threatened to buckle. "Are you seriously standing here, telling me this like it's no big deal?" "It is a big deal," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "That's why I wanted you to meet him. We need to figure out how to move forward, together." Together? The word hit me like a slap. What kind of twisted reality was this where she thought I'd be okay sharing my wife with another man? Ethan, still standing there like some uninvited guest at a funeral, finally spoke up. "Look, James, I know this is hard to process, but I think it's important for us to be upfront with each other. No secrets." I couldn't take it anymore. "No secrets?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You've been sneaking around with my wife, and now you're here, lecturing me about honesty?" Claire stepped between us, her hands raised as if to diffuse the tension. "Please, James, I didn't want it to come out this way. I'm sorry." Her apology felt hollow, like a Band-Aid on a wound that needed stitches. I couldn't look at her, couldn't look at Ethan. I turned and walked back inside, slamming the door behind me. For hours, I sat alone in the living room, replaying the moment over and over in my mind. How had we gotten here? What had I missed? Claire eventually came in, but I couldn't bear to face her. I didn't need answers, not tonight. All I needed was to figure out how to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. The silence in the living room was deafening, broken only by the occasional hum of a car passing by. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing in particular, my thoughts a jumbled mess of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. Claire lingered by the doorway, her shadow stretching across the floor, but she didn't come closer. "James," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't respond. "Please," she continued, her tone wavering, "I know this is hard. I didn't mean for things to happen this way, but I cut her off, my voice cold. "You didn't mean for what to happen, Claire? For me to find out? Or for you to destroy everything we built together. Her face crumpled, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw genuine regret in her eyes. But it wasn't enough. Nothing she could say or do would make this betrayal feel any less devastating. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, taking a tentative step closer. "Yet here we are," I replied bitterly. She lowered her gaze, twisting her hands nervously. "I care about you, James. I always have. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling like we were just going through the motions. And then Ethan." I stood abruptly, unable to listen to her rationalize her infidelity. "Don't," I snapped. "Don't you dare try to justify this. If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have worked on it together. But instead, you chose to lie, to cheat. How am I supposed to believe anything you say now?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt no satisfaction in seeing her cry. It didn't undo the damage. It didn't erase the image of Ethan standing in my driveway, acting like he had some right to be there. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, but the words felt empty. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Claire." I ran a hand through my hair, trying to steady my breathing. "Do you love him?" Her silence was all the answer I needed. A bitter laugh escaped me. "Unbelievable." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "James, I love you too." "I do. But my feelings for Ethan—" "Stop," I said, my voice breaking. "Just stop." The weight of her confession pressed down on me like 1,000 bricks. This wasn't just a mistake, a one-time lapse in judgment. She had feelings for him, deep enough to destroy our marriage over. "I need some time," I said finally, my tone defeated. "I can't be here right now." Claire's eyes widened in alarm. "Wait, James, please don't leave. We need to talk about this." "Talk about what, Claire?" "How you've been seeing someone else behind my back. How you think we can move forward with him in the picture." "There's nothing to talk about." Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. Ethan was still there, leaning against his car like he had all the time in the world. His expression shifted when he saw me. Part sympathy, part guilt, part something I couldn't quite place. "James," he started, but I didn't let him finish. "Don't," I said sharply, my voice full of venom. "You've already done enough." I climbed into my car and drove away, not knowing where I was going, only that I needed to escape. The streets blurred together as I wrestled with the overwhelming tide of emotions threatening to pull me under. Betrayal, rage, heartbreak, and beneath it all, an aching sense of loss. For hours, I drove aimlessly, replaying the last few hours in my mind like a broken record. How had I missed the signs? The late nights, the distant looks, the sudden bursts of happiness she couldn't quite explain. Eventually, I found myself parked in front of a small motel on the edge of town. The neon sign buzzed faintly in the cold night air, its red glow reflecting off the windshield. It wasn't much, but it was somewhere to think, to breathe. I checked in and collapsed onto the stiff mattress, staring up at the ceiling. The reality of my situation hit me like a freight train. My wife, the woman I had loved, trusted, and built a life with, had shattered everything. And now I was left to pick up the pieces. Alone. For the first time that night, I let the tears fall. I woke up the next morning to the dim light filtering through the thin motel curtains. My eyes felt heavy, and my body ached from the restless night on the lumpy mattress. For a few fleeting moments, I forgot where I was or why I was there. But the memories came flooding back like a dam breaking. Claire's confession, Ethan's smug face, and the crushing realization that my life had been torn apart. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking the silence. I hesitated before picking it up. There were several missed calls from Claire and a few unread messages. "Claire, asterisk, asterisk, please come home. We need to talk, asterisk. Claire, asterisk, asterisk, I didn't want it to happen this way. I need you to understand, asterisk. Claire, asterisk, asterisk, Ethan's gone now. I sent him away. Please, James, just come back so we can figure this out, asterisk." I tossed the phone back onto the nightstand, unwilling to respond. Her words felt like manipulation, a desperate attempt to salvage something she'd already burned to the ground. But as the hours dragged on, I realized I couldn't avoid her forever. If nothing else, I needed closure, answers to the questions swirling in my head. How long had this been going on? Why didn't she tell me sooner? Was there any part of her that still wanted to save our marriage, or was she just clinging to the idea of us out of guilt? By late afternoon, I mustered the courage to drive back home. The house loomed in front of me, the sight of it now tainted with memories I wasn't sure I could trust anymore. I hesitated at the door, my hand hovering over the handle. When I stepped inside, the smell of coffee greeted me. Claire was in the kitchen, her back to me, clutching a mug with both hands. She turned as I entered, her face lighting up with a mix of relief and apprehension. "You came back," she said softly. "Don't read into it," I replied, my tone colder than I intended. She flinched but nodded. "I understand." I sat down at the dining table, folding my arms across my chest. "Talk." She set her mug down and took a seat across from me. For a long moment, she just stared at her hands, as if searching for the right words. "It started a few months ago," she began, her voice trembling. "I met Ethan at a networking event for work. At first, it was just casual conversation, nothing serious. But then we kept running into each other. He made me feel seen, like he understood parts of me that I thought I'd lost." I clenched my fists under the table, struggling to keep my composure. "So what, Claire? I didn't make you feel seen? Is that supposed to justify what you did?" She shook her head quickly. "No, it's not an excuse. I know I messed up, James. I should have talked to you, told you how I was feeling. But I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you, and somewhere along the way, I just lost control." Her voice cracked, and tears began to spill down her cheeks. "I hate myself for what I've done to you. To us. I never stopped loving you, James. I swear." "Funny way of showing it," I muttered bitterly. She wiped her eyes, but her tears didn't move me. I needed more than apologies and promises. I needed to know if there was anything left worth saving. "Do you want to fix this?" I asked bluntly. Her head shot up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Of course I do. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, whatever you need. Just don't give up on us." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw a glimmer of the woman I fell in love with, the woman who used to fight for what mattered. But could I trust her again? Could I live with the knowledge that she had betrayed me so deeply? "I don't know if I can," I admitted. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you the same way." Her face crumpled, but she nodded. "I understand. I hope you'll try. That's all I'm asking." I stood, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "I need more time, Claire. I can't just pretend this didn't happen." She reached for my hand, her touch hesitant. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." I pulled my hand away, not ready for her touch yet. Without another word, I left the house, unsure of where I was headed or what the future held. All I knew was that the road ahead would be long and uncertain, and I wasn't sure if Claire would still be waiting at the end of it. The drive felt endless, even though I had no destination in mind. My thoughts ran in circles, every memory of my life with Claire twisting into something darker, tainted by her betrayal. I kept replaying her words, her tears, her plea for me to give her a chance. But how could I? How could I trust her when I couldn't even trust myself to make sense of what I was feeling? Eventually, I found myself at the park where Claire and I used to take evening walks. The air was cold, but the stillness of the place was oddly comforting. I sat on a bench overlooking the lake, the water reflecting the dim light of the moon. It was here that Claire had once told me she wanted to start a family. That dream now felt like it belonged to a different life. As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Claire. It was a text from my best friend, Mark. Mark **K, man.
Claire called me. She's worried.
You okay? **. I stared at the message, torn between ignoring it and pouring my heart out. Mark had always been the guy I turned to when life got rough, but this wasn't a situation I wanted to share. It felt too raw, too humiliating. After a few minutes, I replied, **, not really. Can we talk?
Asterisk.
A second later, his reply came, asterisk of course. I'm home. Come over, asterisk. I drove to Mark's place, grateful for the distraction. When I arrived, he greeted me at the door, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Claire told me some of it, he said as I stepped inside. But I want to hear it from you. I sank onto his couch, the weight of the past 24 hours pressing down on me. Slowly, I recounted everything. Claire's confession, Ethan's smug introduction, the way my world had crumbled in an instant. Mark listened quietly, his face growing darker with each detail. That's messed up, man, he said when I finished. I don't even know what to say. I mean, what the hell was she thinking? I don't think she was, I replied bitterly. Or maybe she was and I just didn't see it. Either way, I don't know what to do. She says she wants to fix it, but how do I even start forgiving something like this? Mark leaned back, crossing his arms. You don't have to decide that right now.
Take your time.
If she's serious about making things right, she'll wait. But don't let her rush you into anything. You need to figure out what's best for you. His words hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I had been focused on keeping our marriage intact, making Claire happy, and pushing through the rough patches. But this wasn't just a rough patch. It was a fundamental betrayal of everything we'd built. Do you think I should even try? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark hesitated, clearly torn. That's not for me to decide. But I will say this, if you don't think you can trust her again, don't drag it out. It'll only make things worse for both of you.
Trust is the foundation, man.
Without it, there's no point. I nodded, though the thought of walking away from Claire still felt impossible. Despite everything, I loved her. I hated that I did, but the feelings wouldn't just disappear overnight. Mark clapped me on the shoulder. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. You're not alone in this. His words brought a small measure of comfort, but the road ahead still felt like a minefield. I stayed at Mark's place that night, grateful for the reprieve from the suffocating tension of home. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Mark scrolling through his phone. She texted me again, he said when he saw me. Wants to know if you're okay? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Tell her I'm alive. That's all she needs to know right now. He nodded, typing out a quick reply. As the days passed, I kept my distance from Claire, alternating between anger, sorrow, and confusion. She continued to text me, each message a mix of apologies and pleas for a chance to talk. I responded sparingly, unwilling to give her the satisfaction of thinking everything could just go back to normal. One evening, about a week after her confession, I found myself standing outside our house again. The lights were on, a warm glow spilling out into the cold night. My heart ached as I thought about everything we'd shared within those walls. The laughter, the arguments, the quiet moments of simply being together. I didn't know if I could forgive her, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. If there was any hope of moving forward, I needed answers. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door and stepped inside. Claire was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy, as if she'd been crying. She looked up when she saw me, a flicker of hope crossing her face. James, she said softly, standing up. I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. I'm not here to make decisions. I just need you to tell me the truth, everything. No more lies, no more sugarcoating. If there's even a chance for us, I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. She nodded, her expression serious. Okay, I'll tell you everything. As I sat down, bracing myself for whatever she was about to say, I realized that this moment would define the rest of our lives, whether together or apart.